Good evening, and welcome to the Sodcast. Just kidding. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Wendy Sod, and I am your host of the Sodcast. Tonight's case I have for you is going to be a long one, so grab your coffee, your pop, whatever, and hopefully you'll stick around to the end because it's a very interesting case. The case I have tonight is that of Sierha Joughin. She was born and raised in Sylvania, Ohio. She went to Evergreen High School, where she graduated from in 2014. After that, she began to attend UTMC, Toledo University, and she was a human resource major while she was there. At the time of Sierra's disappearance, in 2016, Sierra was a junior at the college. Sierra had a boyfriend by the name of, bear with me, I got to look down because this is a tough one, Josh Kolasinski. That's what I'm going to go with. I hope that's right. Don't want to offend anyone. Anyway, her and Josh had been together for quite a while. I think they were together in high school as well. They attended the same college. So on this evening, this was a Tuesday evening in July, July 19th, her boyfriend and her went on a bike ride like they often did. And this was in Metamora, Ohio, which is not far from Sylvania, kind of outside Toledo, the outskirts of Toledo, Ohio. They were just taking their normal bike ride like they did, and at approximately 6:45 p.m., Josh had snapped a picture of the pair of them, and he posted it onto Snapchat. Now that was about 6:45. After that, they parted their ways like they usually did, and he headed towards his house, and she headed towards her house like she had always done. On this evening, later on, her mother became concerned because Sierra didn't come home. So she obviously got a hold of Josh. Josh hadn't heard from her. They immediately went to the police department that evening and filed a police report for a missing person. So immediately a search began, and this was a huge search. There was over 100 volunteers involved, community. There was surrounding police departments involved in this search. There was the FBI right from the get-go because they were taking it very serious because this was not her MO. So the search begins, and obviously they go back to where she was last seen, which was near Evergreen High School. And they, early on in the search, I'm not sure if it was first day, second day, her purple bicycle she was riding was found in that area where she went missing, where she parted from Josh, and it was like 3 rows deep into the cornfield. So they recovered that. Also, they started questioning people that were in the area that day, and they came across a piece of shit by the name of James Worley. Okay, now this dirtbag, he was 57 years old at the time, and they take this guy in. They realize that he was in the area for approximately 2 hours during the time when Sierra went missing. Now, how they knew this information, I'm not sure right away how they knew, but I know later on they checked his phone and was able to tell that way. But I'm not sure how they, unless he just said, well, hey, I was around for 2 hours, because he sounds smart. So anyway, they start questioning this piece of crap, and he just makes an odd statement, like, he says something to the effect, well, I didn't steal anything, and I didn't kill anybody. So I don't know what you want to talk to me for. Weird. Very weird fella. Anyway, moving along. So they start to look into Worley a little bit because he is just such a piece of crap, and I guess they got the vibe. They started looking into his background, and they discover something a little saucy. So Mr. Worley, back in 1990, was also convicted of abduction of another young girl. This young lady was Robin Gardner, 26 years old at the time. She was just taking a little bike ride down, similar to what Sierra and her boyfriend were doing. She was near Worley's home at the time. He pulls up and he bumps her off of her bike with his car. He gets out of the car, you know, to ask her if she's okay. And as soon as she stands up, he grabs her, handcuffs her, and tries to throw her into the car. So Robin takes off running. She gets back up onto the road, and just as she was doing that, a motorcyclist was passing and flagged him down, and she was able to get to safety. So Robin reports this, and he gets charged with attempted kidnapping. And this guy goes to prison for 3 years, and he's released. Yeah, I'm sure he'll never do it again, right? I'd like to get my hands on that judge, because here we go again. How many years later? 2016. Do the math. I'm not that smart. I can't add it up. Quite a few years later, right? Here this dude is trying to do the same exact thing, okay? Here's a young pretty girl on a bike. Her boyfriend leaves her, and here comes Jackass down the road in his big blue Buick that he later in an interview said he couldn't remember if he had one or not. I mean, fucking idiot. Who can't remember what kind of cars they've owned in the past? I mean, okay, whatever. So they start looking into this guy, and they decide they have enough suspicion, I guess, to get a search warrant for his house and his property. He didn't live far from that area where she went missing. So they begin to search not only his property, but the surrounding area, that whole location. And they find on July 22nd, so sad, they find Sierra's body in a shallow grave approximately 12 miles from Worley's house. And she had been hogtied, she had been gagged, and she had a ball in her mouth, like a ball and gag and, what do they call that? Gag and ball thing where they put the ball in here and gag. I don't know, it's not my style, but anyway, that's what she had in her mouth. And like I said, she was hogtied. And so they go back and they start to search his property. And in a barn on the back of his property, they find some creepy ass shit. And I'm telling you, creepy ass shit. So they find this room in the barn that is like a dungeon, like a sex slave dungeon type weird bullshit. And it's got like restraints in there, and they dig deeper and they find piles and piles of women's underwear and lingerie. And over here they find a freezer that's not plugged in, but it's just a freezer, and it's looking suspicious. So they open it up, and inside this freezer the whole thing's carpeted. Yeah, to keep his meat safe, I guess. Weird. So on the carpet inside the freezer, there was blood on the carpet in there. So I don't know if this is where he was keeping his ladies, you know, these women, well, at this time, woman that he had brought there and kept her there for 3 days. And we do not have details about what went on in those 3 days, obviously, because the dirtbag won't admit to it. He just flat out denies it and doesn't know her, and, you know. So we don't know the details. We don't need to know the details. The family doesn't need to know the details. We can only guess what happened in there. I will tell you that in the autopsy report, she did have a fractured skull. Her cause of death, though, was asphyxiation. Asphyxiation from this ball being crammed so far down her throat, and then, you know, tied on there so tightly that it suffocated her. So God only knows what all he did to her. But oddly enough, there was no evidence of sexual assault, which very odd, because, you know, I don't know, it's just odd to me. Tell me what you think. So, moving along, they find her body, and by 6 o'clock that evening, they arrested him and brought him in. There was a big, long, drawn-out trial, and he was convicted of the murder. I believe he got life in prison, and that is not the end of the story. So, over the years, as recent as 2020, this man has been interviewed several times while he was in prison, and I really suggest you go watch these some of these interviews, because they're really interesting. I could not get them downloaded to play here because I'm new to this and I'm just really stupid, so that wasn't happening. I did try, so I apologize, but I do suggest you go watch these, because this guy is a real freaking scumbag, and you can't tell me that from 1990 he attacks this woman, hits her with the car, and then he says, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore. I feel really bad for what I did, you know. I found Jesus in prison for those 3 years, and I'm a changed man. And he just led this exemplary life, and yeah, bullshit. Bullshit. You know there's other victims out there. So getting back to these interviews I was telling you about, this lady from Toledo, newscaster, goes and she gets okay to interview him. And I guess he reached out to her because he wanted to set the story straight. Yeah, right. He just made himself look like a dick. So, you know, there was a few other girls that had gone missing, and they weren't found. But one of the girls, named Claudia Tinsley, I believe, and I apologize if I get the date wrong, but roundabout 1996. So would have been 6 years after his first attack on a woman that we know of. He meets Miss Tinsley, and she is from North Toledo, and he hooks up with her, goes to her house where she was living with her mother, and Miss Tinsley was a little, I guess, suspicious of this guy to begin with, like why she made the choice still, you know, having that gut feeling that it wasn't a good idea, why she decided to still go with him. It's not for us to judge, but she did know enough to say to her mom, write down this license plate number just in case anything happens to me, just to be safe, right? So Miss Tinsley and Asswipe leave in his blue Buick, again, that he didn't own or he couldn't remember. In one interview, he said he may have had a Buick. He knows he had a blue car, but he didn't probably have it at that time because it was in the shop for a year. Who the fuck keeps a car in their shop for a year working on it? I don't know. Maybe that happens. Sounds shady to me. Anyway, so she has her mom write down the license plate number. And she goes on a ride with this man. I don't want to muddy her name, but they went to do a sexual deed thing, okay? Let's just say that. And then he was going to just bring her back home. Apparently, they drove around for about 40 minutes, and she never returned home. To this day, they do not have any answers. This family does not have any answers to what happened to her. But they are damn sure they know what happened. And that is Mr. Asshole Worley happened. That he took this girl and he took her for a ride. And he probably took her back to his barn, which I know that they, when that came up and she went missing and the whole license plate came out and they ran that license plate and it came back to him. They did research his house, his barn, his property. They did not find any other human remains. They did not find any other evidence, no clothing of hers. That could be determined. I don't know. He had tons and tons of women's panties, and they're probably not ones he just went and bought at the store. I mean, he got them from somewhere. He's a goddamn creep. So, that's one case that he is also possibly linked to. Okay, so there was a second case that they also thought maybe was connected to Worley. A young lady back in 1985, she was walking home, I believe from a party, and in the area, of course, where Worley lived, I guess, and she was crossing over the turnpike at the time, over the bridge, and that was the last she was seen. Now, this case actually has since been solved. A man by the name of Walter was convicted of murdering her years later. I may end up doing a full case on Lori Ann Hill because her case is just horrible too. She was found brutally beaten on the side of the road and dead. So I may end up doing a case on her, so watch for that. But Mr. Worley, he is just this pompous asshole that in these interviews I was telling you about, he keeps making the remarks that, I'm going to keep appealing this. And, I mean, he's running out of appeals. I think he's out. I don't know. But he was, earlier in this episode, I said that he was sentenced to life. That's not true. He was sentenced to death. And he is sentenced for 2025 to be put to death. And all I have to say to Mr. James Worley is, die, bitch. It's time for you to go. It's time. Bye. No more hurting women. I hope you're having a miserable, miserable existence in prison. And yeah, 2025 is right around the corner. There's going to be a lot of happy people that day. So, chew on that for a minute. Anyway, so that concludes the case for tonight. I thought it was going to be a little longer, but I guess I was talking fast. I don't know. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you join me for the next case. Bye.